Good evening. It is Monday night, and we are back reviewing a very eventful weekend. Maybe some will say controversial state of Scottish football. We look back at the weekend's action. I'm Glenn Schroeder. I'm delighted to be once again joined by Graeme. Graeme, we're going to be starting with your team though, as Hearts made the trip to Celtic Park. The Jambos rang the changes with Thursday's Europa League qualifier in mind, and Celtic, though, maintained their 100% start to the season. I guess, given the changes that Hearts made, that result was maybe going to be expected from your point of view?
Yeah, and to be honest, listen, every fan hates to get beat, but when I saw the lineup and I saw 7 changes with Ross Stewart in goal, Toby Sibbick and Atkinson at the back, I thought this could be about 8 or 9. I thought, what's the record defeat at Celtic Park?
So well, we've done 9.
Well, true, yeah. I would have taken a 2-0 defeat before the game. I know that sounds daft, but I would have taken that all day long. And I think, to be honest, it's what I expected. Celtic completely dominated. Ross Stewart, he had a decent game, but to be honest, it wasn't like he was like peppered with loads of shots. Mm-hmm. A lot of chances that Celtic had were either high or wide. He had a couple of decent saves I'd expect him to make, although it is Ross Stewart, so possibly not. I think second half we were a little bit better, but again, we didn't really create anything. We had one real chance in the first half. Giannelli, for me, should do a lot better. He drags his shot wide. He should really take the ball in further and have a shot, but it's a poor finish. But I think with the amount of changes we made, I've got to be happy-ish to get off with a 2-0 defeat at Celtic Park when I honestly thought Celtic could go and score about 6 or 7. So yeah, I'm not overly frustrated. I understand the changes. Mm-hmm. My main worry was the fact that Craig Gordon was out, and I'd heard they had back spasms, so hopefully he's fine for Thursday. But apart from that, I can't be too disappointed with that.
Yeah, well, I suppose on Craig Gordon, Xander Clark's a free agent still, so maybe something that Hearts could look to if it's going to be a more long-term problem for Craig Gordon. Would you be opposed to that?
I saw somebody on Twitter earlier saying that Xander Clark was in talks. I don't know how true that is, but yeah, I would quite happily take Xander Clark. He's not going to come to sit on the bench, but if he knows that Gordon's not fit, listen, I'm taking Xander Clark over Ross Stewart every day of the week, so I would quite happily take Xander Clark, but I'm hoping, fingers crossed, that Gordon's fine for Thursday because we need him fit.
Yeah, let's look at Celtic then, because I know you won't want to get wound up too much about Hearts. Once again, that Japanese link-up between Maeda and Kyogo proving very fruitful for Celtic. We seem to be talking constantly every Monday just now about how powerful that front three for Celtic is, and they proved it once again in that first half.
They didn't. I mean, I can't be biased and say that they should have another chance because Kyogo was onside as well in the first half. It's a poor decision, but he did overrun it. And Stewart made the save, but he was onside. And I think I've seen a few Hearts fans as well saying, "Oh, that first goal's offside." He wasn't. He was onside. It's a good finish, and to be fair, it's good play from Maeda. He does Cochrane really well. Cochrane's out strength, to be honest. And as with the Kilmarnock game, Maeda tees it up for Kyogo. That's a good finish. And after that, Celtic were very comfortable. Hearts didn't really do enough. And Celtic, had they upped the level a bit, they probably could have scored more. But I think they had plenty of possession. I think it was like 69% possession or something. So they could, they had chances again. But as I said, they didn't really, it wasn't like they were peppering the goal. They were very comfortable. And, that front line is just, it is very impressive. Maeda, you've got Kyogo, and you've got Jota, he was quieter on Sunday, but he's still a massive threat. And I think that midfield as well, Celtic have got a very good balance in there. I've spoken about Matt O'Reilly as well. I think he's a very, very good footballer. They've got a very good team. And, with the Rangers result on Saturday, it was important for Celtic. They got the result yesterday. It didn't matter how they did it. And they've pretty much been very comfortable.
Yeah, I suppose that's kind of one of the things I kind of really didn't think of, actually. It was the first time this season there's been a slip up at the top of the table and it's allowed somebody to take advantage. Obviously, Hearts themselves could have taken advantage and gone and been sitting top had they gone and got the positive result. But maybe Robbie Neilson thinking that Thursday night is more important to the club than the long term of the league. But for Celtic, you said there about them being able to step up a gear. Maybe a frustrating day at the office for Celtic in terms of certainly the chances that they created were probably wanted to have scored more goals on Sunday.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you're Ange Postecoglou, when you've got that much domination, you're hoping that your team would be a bit more clinical. But listen, I think he'll be happy with the win. You know, they're 2 points clear, a decent advantage. You've got the Rangers Celtic game coming in a couple of weeks.
Mm.
And I think if they really wanted to, with that Hearts lineup, they could have really hammered us, to be honest. And as I say, they did have chances, but a lot of the chances were either wide or high, or, you know, they tested Stewart a few times, but not enough. But they still had reasonable control of the game. And obviously, Giakoumakis gets the goal after Hearts are down to 9 men. But it had been coming for a while. So, yeah, maybe a bit of a maybe a bit of a day where they could have scored more, but they've got the win, and that's all that matters when you're Celtic Rangers. You just have to win games.
Yeah, I suppose you're right. If you're Ange, you probably do think the main thing is it is 3 points. You've taken advantage of your main rival slipping up. Okay, and then as well, no injuries. Move on to next week, where you're going to be facing a struggling Dundee United side, which obviously we'll come on to a little bit later on. On the flip side as well, there were comments made by Robbie Neilson about needing a strong referee in games like this, and kind of referring to when teams go to Glasgow, needing a referee that's going to be able to manage the game fairly. I think it's not the first time Robbie's made these comments in defeat in Glasgow. He made similar sort of comments after the defeat at Ibrox last season. Do you think those comments kind of deflect from the performance or take away? Because I think, for a much changed Hearts team, I don't know, but if I was you, maybe would feel slightly encouraged by what you saw, because, as you've said, you were probably feeling a lot worse when that team news broke it in about 2:00 on Sunday.
I was 100%, especially because Craig Gordon wasn't there. But I mean, yeah, Robbie does tend to do that a lot. He deflects away from the team. I mean, on Thursday after the game, he said Hearts were outstanding against Zurich. We weren't. We scored that goal and then didn't really do a lot after that. But maybe it's just trying to take a bit of pressure off the team for the second leg. But again, when you go to Glasgow, I don't take much count of I don't take much notice of the kind of crime count. I know a lot of folk have said, Celtic had a number of different fouls and no bookings. Listen, that's just part of the game. But I've got no complaints about the two sending off. It's 2 yellow cards for Clarkson. They were right. It was 2 red yellow cards for Civic. You can maybe say the second one is maybe a little bit harsh, but he does make the foul. So it is a booking. So you can't take away from that. And for Robbie to come out and say about the referee, the fact is, and I said this on Twitter in the group chat, the fact is we didn't have a shot on target in Glasgow again. And that's a worry for me. Now, we've not won at Celtic Park for 15 years. I've seen a lot better Celtic teams and a lot better Hearts teams, and Hearts still can't win. That's a worry. I heard Joe Savage say a few weeks ago that he wants us to be going to Glasgow and competing. We're still quite a way off from doing that. Now, even if we'd had a full strength team, I don't think we'd have won the game. But I just think to come up with those comments about, the referee and stuff, I don't agree. I think you've got to look at the hard facts that Celtic had 69% possession and Hearts have had no shots on target. That's what I look at. Joe Hart could have gone and sat on the stand. He had nothing to do. So that's what I would look at rather than the crime count. Yeah,
I'm a big fan of him saying that the Cochrane red card changed the game when he gets sent off in the 89th minute as well. And, I think for young Ross Stewart coming in, taking in the place of Craig Gordon, I think he has had an excellent game despite the scoreline. He's pulled off some really good saves in there as well. So to come away and put your main focus on the refereeing performance when there's possibly some shining lights in your own team is a bit in poor taste, I feel.
Yeah, I mean, I think, to be honest, again, when I saw the lineup and I went on Twitter, which is brilliant when you see a Hearts team sheet, and when Ross Stewart was announced in the team, everyone's just like, what? Yeah. Everyone was like, this is going to be 5, 6, 7. And I was like, yeah, this could be 8 or 9. And to be fair, he did do well. As I say, I don't think he had a lot to do, but what he did do, it dealt with reasonably well. And I think when you go to Celtic Park, you're going to get tested. You're going to be in a hard game. And he did really well. I am still not convinced, but that's got to give him a confidence boost. You go to Celtic Park, you've had a decent game. You've only lost 2 goals, which were not his fault. I think you're right. Robbie's got to take that and say, look, do you know what? Ross Stewart did really well. And there was, I think, defensively we were all right. I thought Kyle Rolls, again, was very, very impressive. I thought Nathaniel Atkinson, who I've been a massive critic of, actually did okay. So there was positives. I would have liked to see maybe like Connor Smith and Finlay Pollock get a bit more game time. But apart from that, I think you've got to be able to be happy. And again, the goal difference hasn't been massively affected like it could have been.
Yeah, that's a fair point on the goal difference. And I suppose a final word on Celtic, despite it maybe, as I said, being a frustrating day for some of the forwards. I think, Giakoumakis does get his goal, but another maybe frustrating run out for him where he probably feels he should have had a couple of more. The main thing is they've taken advantage of the slip up from Rangers. They've got that 3 points. They're looking still to strengthen, and I dare think what we're going to be coming back here next Monday speaking about, because we just can't seem to find a fault in Celtic yet this season.
No, they do look very good. They look very professional. As were yesterday, they've scored 5 goals against Kilmarnock. They look very, very impressive going forward. I've already said that I don't see anybody stopping them just now. I think the Rangers-Celtic games are going to be crucial to this. But then again, Rangers has dropped 2 points, so it could happen. But I just don't see who's going to beat Celtic. And certainly, I don't see United beating them next week. So that's another 3 points that probably go on the board as well. So they look very, very impressive. They look like they're going to get another sign in the door, according to Postecoglou. So they're just going to get stronger and stronger. And as I say, with that forward line, they just look so good just now.
Yeah, and I suppose as well from last season as well, when they were probably quite poor defensively, they'll be really encouraged by 3 out of 4 clean sheets as well. And just obviously that one concession of a goal from a set piece up in Dingwall. Now we'll move on swiftly to probably the most controversial game of the weekend, Graeme, taking place in Edinburgh. It was the Saturday lunchtime kickoff, where Rangers, I think it's fair to say, saw red in that second half as the shares were spoilt. We'll come on to the red cards in a little bit, but we'll speak about the first half because it was a tale really of 2 penalties in that first half. Hibs failing to see one awarded when Rocky Bashiri was pulled down in the box by James Tavernier. And then it was Bashiri again involved, pulling back at Cholak and Willie Collum not hesitating in pointing to the spot. What was your thoughts on both those decisions?
I thought the Hibs penalty should have been a penalty. I think you can see there's a clear tug by Tavernier on Bashiri. I know that Hanlon is also on top of Tavernier, but you can see there's a clear pull. So I think that's a penalty. And I think if VAR is there, our favourite 3 words, I think that's given. I think on the Rangers one, I can understand why Collum's given it. And I can, Bashiri gives him the chance to give it because he has the arms kind of wrapped around him. But again, I think it is very, very soft. I think Cholak does go down a bit easily. But then again, there is no need to make the challenge because the ball's going through to David Marshall. So there's no real danger there. I don't know what Bashiri's doing. But I think it does, for me, look very, very harsh. But again, I can understand why Collum gives it because he does give him the option to go down.
Yeah, and the Bashiri one's a strange one because it's not really until you see the replay that it kind of becomes a question about a penalty because there was no real appeal from the home side, I felt, maybe apart from Rocky. But on the flip side of the Rangers penalty, I just don't understand, well, one, what Rocky Bashiri is doing, but I feel the ball's pretty much at David Marshall. I don't think Anthony Cholak's getting that ball at all. So I feel it's really harsh to give the penalty, but are we really surprised at the end of the day?
No, I mean, listen, Rocky Bashir is a bit of a joke figure, to be honest. I think there's times he's okay, but other times he looks a bit cumbersome. And I think don't give the referee the option to do that. If you've got your arms round the guy, although it's very slight contact, you give the referee the option. And listen, David Marshall's getting that. There's no doubt about that. But Cholak does go down very easily. But listen, Bashiri's got that in him. He's that kind of defender. And I think he has these kind of brain fart moments. But I do think it is very harsh. And again, if you look at the one on the other end, I think you can clearly see that Tavernier has, he's got hold of the shirt. So that it does look a penalty. But again, with VAR, I think the Hibs one gets given, but I'm not sure if the Rangers one does or not. It's hard to tell.
I think, though, with VAR, the Hibs one probably does get given. I think you're right. But I don't think there'd be enough evidence to overrule the Rangers one. If if and when VAR is introduced at any stage this season. But James Tavernier making no mistake from the spot, as he tends to do, putting Rangers ahead at the half. But Hibs, to be fair to them, last week we said they continue to look pretty toothless up front, lacking a bit of quality. But Martin Boyle proving his worth once again, getting his second goal since returning to the side.
Yeah, and again, like it was against Hearts, it's Eluan that makes it again. It's a great run, but again, there's maybe a hint of offside. Again, it's hard to tell from the angle we see, but I couldn't really tell if it was offside or not, but it's a great ball across, and Martin Boyle, as every decent striker should do, I know he's a winger, but he gets across the front post and it's a good finish. And at that point, I'm thinking, Hibs, they didn't really do a lot first half. It wasn't the greatest of games first half, to be honest. I think Rangers maybe slightly edged it, but it's difficult. It wasn't the greatest of games, but I think after that penalty, I thought Hibs might be in the ascendancy, getting that goal, the crowd behind them. Martin Boyle, we always know that Martin Boyle's going to be a threat, but obviously about 7 minutes later, Rangers go and get the second goal. So they weren't in the ascendancy after all.
Yeah, and it's good to see the interaction with the show tonight, and a lot of you giving your thoughts on the penalties from the first half. Stockroom Tim saying VAR is giving those penalties all day long once it comes in. I think our show on Monday will be struggling to cram a lot into the hour in the second half of the season when VAR does come in, Graham. Although we could be waiting nearly an hour for some of the decisions with how tight some of these decisions were at the weekend as well. But despite Hibs getting themselves back on level terms, Rangers did respond. And it was from a player that we did see quality from a few seasons ago and then struggled to get in the Rangers team last season, Borna Barisic with a brilliant ball into the box. And Tom Lawrence has continued his fine start to his Rangers career with a good header to put Rangers back in front.
Yeah, it's a great move. It's a really good move from Rangers. Good passing move. A great, Barisic has got that in his locker. It's a great ball. And it is a very good header. But I think if you're Lee Johnson, you're asking, where's the defender? Where's the covering defender there? He shouldn't be getting that time in the box, but it's a very good goal. It's a great header. And I think Lawrence has shown that he's a really good player. He's got a real goal threat. And that's what he wants from midfielder, breaking his net to get in the box and finishing. It's a great goal. And it's a very, very good header from a guy who has looked very impressive so far, I think, for Rangers.
Yeah, definitely seems to have been one of their better summer signings. And I think, Kolak's off the ball work was impressive as well, dragging some of the defenders to the near post, allowing that space for Lawrence. And you think, at 2-1, you think, oh, if you're a Hibs fan, here we go again. We've done all that hard work, got back into the game and lost, probably from a Hibs point of view, as you've highlighted there, the defending, a very soft goal. But then Rangers really saw red and kind of lost their heads a little bit. John Lundstrom rather recklessly broke the counter-attack as he hauled down Martin Boyle. And at the time, I thought, well, that's going to be, your classic case of cynical yellow card. But of course, we're speaking about Scottish referees and Willie Collum in particular, who always has other ideas. Brandishing the red card to John Lundstrom, did you feel that was a red card?
It's a tough one because at the time I did, and I can understand why Collum gave it. But if you watch the angle that Collum's at, I think he assumes that it's a high challenge and it's a kind of studs to the ankle.
Yeah.
So that's the only reason I can think that he's given that. But then again, if you look at Jake Doyle-Hayes on Lundstrom, the only thing I can think there is that Jake Doyle-Hayes' foot is a little bit lower than what Lundstrom's was, and that's why he's dished a yellow card out. They do look very similar, but I think for me, it did look a dangerous challenge. So I can understand why Collum gave it. And I've heard a lot of folk talking about it. I watched Sky Sports News earlier, and Dermot Gallagher saying it was a yellow card. But I can understand why it was a red, because it does look high and it does look dangerous.
Yeah, I mean, I have to say, the more I saw the replays, the more you can understand why. I think the speed of the challenge as well, that Martin Boyle's breaking, the speed he's hauled down, I think, goes towards the serious foul play and endangering the opponent, which obviously moves it into the red card. But I think on some of the slower replays where it looks more of like a tap and then Boyle's kind of being tripped as a result of both his ankles coming together, suggests the yellow card. And I suppose Willie Collum only does have that one look at it, and that's why he's gone for the red card. Rangers, of course, have appealed the decision. Do you think they'll be successful in that appeal in terms of downgrading that to a yellow?
Do you know what? I don't know, because, again, I go back to VAR. If you watch some of the chances in the English Premiership, I think if we had VAR now, I'm not sure that gets overturned, just because I think they would see it as high and dangerous.
Yeah.
So I am not sure that if VAR was in, I don't think that would get overturned. So I know Rangers have appealed it, and if they do get it overturned, then fair enough. But I am genuinely not sure if they will be successful with that, because I think if they look at that, they might think that the referee's decision was right. So I'm interested just to see how that's going to go.
Yeah, well, I suppose if you look at the decision around Kieran Trippier in the Newcastle Man City game yesterday, where he was kind of sent off for something similar, and that was downgraded to yellow. But again, Stockroom Tim with the comment about rather going without VAR, enjoying the controversy. And that's kind of something I quite like about the controversy. It's a major part of the game up here anyway. You get that talking points in the pub after. You get the talking points on State of Scottish Football as well. Gives us something to discuss. And I suppose for him, it's also much better when Celtic win as well. But Sean Ross, again, another regular commenter on the Monday show, he went to ground with no intention to play the ball. And that's actually an interesting take as well, because I don't think there was much intention from John Lundstrom to ever play the ball. His intention was just to bring down Martin Boyle. And I suppose, again, that's going down to the endangering an opponent route.
Yeah, I mean, he's got no chance to win the ball. The ball's away from him. He's got no chance of getting that. And you know that Martin Boyle's quick, so he's not going to catch him. So the only thing he can do is bring him down. And as I said, I think if you watch the angle that Collum's at, he is thinking that's a high challenge, and that's why the red cards come out. Yeah. So again, I can understand why he's given it, but it's such a difficult one, because I can understand what Lundstrom's trying to do, but I do still think it is high, and I do still think it is reckless.
Yeah. Reckless is also what Alfredo Morelos likes to be. Coming on at your team's 2-1 up, and also looking to get minutes under his belt ahead of Wednesday's crucial Champions League qualifier. That's not what Giovanni Van Bronckhorst had in mind for Alfredo Morelos on Saturday. I mean, he had a little kick out. I'm not sure who it was on, down in the corner flag, that somehow the linesman doesn't spot. Could have quite easily picked up a card for that petulance. But then I can't remember what his last name is. It Karabaj, or however you pronounce it. It's that second swipe to the face. I don't think you can defend that at all. I'm sure some Rangers fans will do their best to, but that's a red card all day long.
Well, if there's any debate about Lundstrom, there is absolutely no debate about Morelos. I mean, it's his 11th red card for Rangers, which is just an embarrassment. Just when you think he's maybe started to calm down a bit, he does something daft like that. And I think when you've just watched John Lundstrom getting sent off, you've got to be thinking, right, Alfredo, just go on there, don't do anything daft, try and nick us a goal, and just relax a little bit. And then he does that, and he has one swing at Cabray and kind of doesn't make contact, and he does it again. It's just sheer stupidity. There's no need for it, and you've left your team up against it, 9 men. It's ridiculous, and he just doesn't ever seem to learn. And you watch him after it, he's got that kind of smile to say, what did I do? It's just a daft decision. And like you said, you need to get minutes in the tank. You've got a big game on Wednesday, and then to go and do something like that and leave your team down to 9 men, it's just ridiculous.
Yeah, and he was lucky not to even be booked in the almost immediate aftermath of Lundstrom's red, because he seemed to be very vocal towards Willie Collum, so much so that Willie had to take him aside. But for some reason, the yellow card did not seem to appear for dissent. So he was very keen to walk that disciplinary tightrope, and we all know that he loves to fall off it at the same time. So I think there was no real surprise that he did pick up a card. But to be fair to Hibs, Josh Campbell said at full time on Sky Sports that playing against 9 men is very tough. Hibs certainly made it look tough, spurning some really good opportunities. But Josh Campbell fair saved the best to last. He said it was a bit of a slice, but if it finds the back of the net, it doesn't matter how it goes in.
Oh, it pains me to give a Hibs player credit, but no, it's it's a brilliant finish. It really is. It comes out to him. It's a difficult skill to do, and it's a fantastic finish. And John McLaughlin has really got no chance for that. It's a brilliant strike. And I mean, yeah, Hibs did put a lot of pressure on Rangers, and Rangers looked like they dealt with it. I think it was 93 minutes when that goal goes in.
Yeah.
And the Hibs are kind of getting that tag now of kind of last minute goals. And I'm only surprised there wasn't a pitch invasion after that. But it's a brilliant. It's a great finish. Let's be honest, it's a wonderful finish and great technique. And for that, it'll feel like a well-earned point for Hibs, and it'll feel like a very disappointing draw for Rangers after that.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that result goes on to affect Rangers as they make the trip to Eindhoven on Wednesday night, which, of course, Wednesday's show on State of Scottish Football will cover in full a preview of that match. But yeah, Rangers were certainly rocked. Hibs, once again, providing the late show in picking up another valuable point in the early stages of the campaign. And what was definitely an entertaining, if not controversial, game. The third game we'll move to from the weekend. We'll go to Perth. There was not much controversy here, but there was certainly quality. Leighton Clarkson proving once again just what he can provide to this Aberdeen team with his second cracking goal for the club. Seems to be running his own little highlight reel, if not goal of the month, goal of the season contenders.
I mean, that boy doesn't do tap-ins, does he?
No.
It was a fantastic strike. I mean, I've spoken about him before. I've watched him for Liverpool under-23s. He's a fantastic talent. And that's just a wonderful, wonderful goal. I mean, there wasn't much in the game. I thought Aberdeen were the better side.
Yeah.
I think Bojan Majowski, slightly unfortunate to be called offside for that first half chance, but
I thought he was.
Nah, I think it was marginal. But again, I think Aberdeen did deserve to win. And if you're gonna win a game by one goal, you may as well do it in style. And it's a wonderful, wonderful strike. Keeper's got no chance. And yeah, Leighton Clarkson is such a brilliant player. And it's just, I mean, if you're Jim Goodwin, you must be thinking, how have I managed to get this guy here? Because he's so talented.
Yeah, well, I was actually recording a segment for Red Tinted Glasses before doing this tonight. I was speaking to Jack Gill from, he was part of the Redmen TV, getting a bit more of an insight into Leighton Clarkson. And yeah, it just seems, he's had such a great upbringing, coming alongside Steve through the youth ranks at Liverpool. About him, a bit of a special talent and doing well to keep him at Aberdeen. I just hope they don't disrupt our season like they did when we had Danny Ward on loan. That's my only concern right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's a special player. I've seen him numerous times, and he's a talent. And I think that goal just sums him up. I mean, you look at that goal he scored against St Mirren, and you think, are you going to be able to top that? And then, lo and behold, he does. And I think, I mean, looking at the game overall, I do think Aberdeen were the better side. I think they created better chances. St Johnston, I just think they struggle to score goals. I mean, Theo Bair, for me, he doesn't look a natural finisher. I think Aberdeen have a lot more about them, but I think Leighton Clarkson could easily score 10 goals this season, if not more, if he keeps performing like that.
And I suppose for St Johnston, that is the problem going to be, his goals. I think there was just the one shot on target that they had on Saturday, and that came with 7 minutes to go, and Jamie Murphy forced Keller Roos into a very good save. And I'm sure it was on Pie and Bovril this morning that I seen them tweet out that St Johnston have only had 6 shots on target this season. And that's quite scary when you think that 2 of them will have come in that win over Motherwell, and one of them was on Saturday. So they're really not creating much opportunity. And when you've got your main striker still not scoring 4 games into the season, is Callum Davidson on a shoogly peg already?
I don't think so yet, but I think the further it goes, I think he might be. I think they are desperately needing reinforcements. I think there's like 11 days left of the window, and I know he has talked about getting a striker in. I think potentially needs 2, and I think he needs a creative midfielder as well, because I don't think they create enough. I think, yeah, Jamie Murphy had a decent opportunity on Saturday, but they just don't look like scoring enough goals. I mean, again, Theo Bair, I think he looks more a number 10 than a natural striker. I think Stevie May, okay, got the goal against Motherwell, but again, I don't think he's going to score enough goals, so they are lacking a natural finisher, and that's got to be a concern. I think that's got to be a concern for Davidson, and he'll hope that he can get that sorted. But I've already said on the show before, I honestly think St Johnston are going to struggle again. I think they're going to be down the bottom again. I don't know if they get relegated, but I think they're going to be in serious trouble again.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I think there'll be a bit of a struggle for St Johnston this season, especially if they can't find a natural goal scorer. Because, yeah, games away from home when you're winning 1-0, you tend to be a bit worried. Especially towards the back end of the game, home side will maybe get a couple of opportunities. And that Jamie Murphy opportunity aside, I never really felt that St Johnston were ever going to score on Saturday. So if I was a Saints fan, I'd be very concerned. But from an Aberdeen point of view, obviously, a much-needed reaction to that defeat against Motherwell week before, and probably the perfect reaction in terms of performance and obviously getting the 3 points as well. But imperative now for Aberdeen to go next weekend when Livingston come north to build on that. We can't afford to be going win-loss, win-loss.
Yeah, I think if you're Jim Goodwin, you're delighted with the victory. You're delighted that Leighton Clarkson's got the goal. But I think the one thing you're delighted about is the clean sheet. Now, I know that St Johnston don't score a lot of goals, but given what happened against Motherwell, I think you're delighted with that, having not conceded. And it's important. It's important that Aberdeen build on that now. Livingston, it's going to be a hard game. You're going to be up for a difficult challenge. But you've got to fancy Aberdeen at home, although we said that against Motherwell. But you've got to fancy Aberdeen to win that game now. They have to build on that. Aberdeen, I've already said again, I think they'll have a good season this season. I think they will be challenging for the top 3, top 4, but they have to keep building on that. And I think, again, I said last week, I think Bojan Majowski is going to score at least between 15 and 20 goals if he keeps getting the service and getting the right positions. Mm-hmm. So I think Aberdeen will do well this season, but they've got to beat Livingston next week, because if they drop points next week, it's a massive blow. I mean, Hearts, after the game on Thursday, we play St Johnston at home. Yeah. Now, I'd imagine we'll make changes for that game. I know that we're trying to get another striker over the line before that game. So, Hearts could easily drop points against St Johnston, depending on how the European game goes. So it's important that Aberdeen build up a head of steam and get points on the board.
Yeah, and I think, when we were speaking last week about the race for third, fourth in the league could be competitive this season. Teams like Aberdeen have to be able to take advantage when other teams drop points. It was imperative this weekend that we picked up the 3, not only to react to what we did last weekend, but you see Motherwell continuing their fine start to the season. Hearts potentially, obviously at the time, dropping points against Celtic, which they went on to do. Both Hibs and Rangers dropping points as well. Aberdeen needed to go out there and get those 3 points, and they did that in a very professional manner. And yeah, I think for Majowski, it was just not his day. There was plenty of opportunity, obviously, as you said, goal ruled out. I think he was just offside, although I'm sure we'd have saw the lines come out next year when VAR's introduced into Scottish football, and seeing his big toe versus, I think it was Brown's big toe who was playing him on-off. So it would be one of them that would probably take a wee while to decide. But a good 3 points for the Dons, and as they look forward to the visit of Livingston this weekend. St Johnston with a lot of work to do ahead of the game against Hearts next week. So we'll see how fortune favours them when we're back next Monday. But that was one game without controversy. We'll move to Dingwall, because it's fair to say that Ross County loved a hard tackle this weekend, but it was their tough tackling that proved pivotal as they picked up their first points of the season, claiming a 1-0 victory over Kilmarnock, whose maybe struggles continue. That's 3 games without a goal now for Derek McInnes' side. We'll come to the controversy first, I think, Graeme, because the comments seem to be loving the controversy from the weekend. Ross Callaghan, suppose if you want to put it in the same bracket as John Lundstrom and Jake Doyle-Hayes, that one's probably the most obvious red card.
Of all the decisions this weekend, that is the worst one yet. It's a blatant scissors kick on the guy. I mean, that would have been good in a kung fu movie. It's a ridiculous challenge. The referee is looking right at that. How on earth he can deem that to be a yellow card is ridiculous. And again, VAR, if that goes to VAR, that's a red card all day. It's a crazy challenge, and I do not know what the referee's watching if he thinks that's a yellow card.
I mean, when you even see the reaction from McInnes and Doherty on the sideline, I knew he'd got sent off in the game, but that's what I thought he'd got sent off for before I realised it was 2 bookable offences. It's just mind-boggling how the ref can see that at full pace, to kind of go back to the point that you made about Willie Collum and John Lundstrom, maybe the angle and the kind of the intent from the player is maybe why Collum lent towards a red card. There was a lot more intent, a lot more aggression there from Ross Callaghan.
I mean, I don't know what Callaghan's doing. It's so high. He's got the 2 legs round the guy. It's a shocking challenge. And to walk, I mean, he could have seriously injured that boy. There's no doubt about that in my mind. He could have injured that boy seriously. Mm-hmm. So I can understand why McInnes was raging. I think any manager would be. And yeah, okay, Callaghan gets sent off eventually, but he should have walked for that. It's a dangerous challenge. It's high. It's reckless. It's just a terrible challenge. And I mean, I've talked before about the fact that, every season we seem to talk about the standard of Scottish refereeing. Mm-hmm. I think so far this season it's been just about as bad as normal. I mean, honestly, the standard of refereeing in Scottish football is an absolute joke. I'm not going to sit here. I've seen folks say on like Twitter and stuff that Scottish referees are corrupt. They're not. They're just awful. And that decision is so bad, it's laughable.
But I suppose the worst thing about it is these are the guys that are going to be in charge of VAR. So what's going to change when that comes in?
I would rather have Stevie Wonder in charge because, I mean, honestly, if you cannot see that's a red card, and as well, Jack Baldwin as well is just as bad and maybe not quite as high, but it's still dangerous. If you can't see those are red cards, you shouldn't be refereeing.
Yeah, so then, well, I think that's your thoughts very clear then that Jack Baldwin should have also seen red, obviously booked for his over-the-ball challenge on the Kilmarnock midfielder. And it was reckless. He's lunging for a ball that he's taken a poor touch on. I don't see how that's only a booking.
It's over the top. He's out of control. It's a red card all day. Again, it could have caused serious injury. And again, I don't know what the referee's watching. It was a terrible challenge. So Ross County should have been doing it to 9 men. Yes, they've got the win, fair play, probably deserved on the balance of play, but they should be doing it to 9 men. There's no doubt about it. They're 2 ridiculous challenges. And that referee, for me, I mean, if you're the referee at that game, I would like to think, not that it matters now, but I would like to think that referee has watched that game back and he's phoned Derek McInnes and said, you know what? I got those 2 very badly wrong. I know it doesn't affect the game now, but they were awful, awful challenges.
Yeah, and Stephen Coulthard in the comment saying it was a shocking challenge from the county player. He hasn't said which one. I'm assuming at the time of the comment he was speaking about Callaghan, but could easily be speaking about both because they were both very poor tackles. Obviously, Callaghan then picking up second booking in the end for a handball that I felt was, I don't know, did you feel that is a booking, that one against him for the handball?
Again, it is a bit harsh. But again, playing by the rules, it probably is a second yellow. But I mean, if that's a second yellow and his first one's a yellow card, then I honestly don't know the laws of the game anymore.
Yeah, I couldn't believe it. I wondered if just that second yellow was the ref knowing he's made a mistake and thinking at the first possible opportunity I have to give him a second yellow, let's do it then. But it obviously didn't affect Ross County. They did go on to pick up the 3 points. And I'm pleased for Ross County that they're off the board, up and running, because for the last couple of weeks, Graham, we've been speaking about how well Ross County have played and they've not picked up anything or not, been rewarded for some of the good play they've shown in spells this season. So I'm sure Malky Mackay is a very relieved man that despite going down to 10 men, County showed a lot of character to go on and win that game.
Yeah, to be honest, the guy that scored the goal, Awura Edwards, has been a shining light for me so far. I think he's looked very impressive whenever I've seen him. So for him to get the goal, it's great. And yeah, I think in all the games they played so far, they have been looking like a threat. I can see what they're trying to do. They're trying to play football. They're trying to get the white players in the game, and they're trying to get the ball on the ground and pass the ball, which is great. But they just haven't quite had the luck. So yeah, it's a great victory for Malky Mackay, and they need to go and build on that now. It's going to be hard, I know, but they've got to build on that now. But it's a very good win for them, and I think Malky Mackay will be delighted. But they are very, very fortunate because they should have been done it in 9 men.
Yeah, I suppose with it being Rangers this weekend for County, it was important that they did get that points on the board this weekend. But for Kilmarnock, now finding themselves in the bottom 2, as I said, 3 games without a goal. Kyle Lafferty was subbed off at half-time in this game, I believe. Do Killie need to strengthen before the window closes? Or, as Derek McInnes said, they've competed well in games, which is maybe up for debate if you're a Kilmarnock fan, but they've had little to show. I know obviously the Rangers Celtic games you can maybe take aside, but that'll be one that hurts Derek McInnes, not taking anything away from a game that you were playing against 10 men.
Competed well in a 5-0 defeat against Celtic. That's a new one. No, I would be, again, like St Johnston, I'd be slightly concerned with Kilmarnock. They've only scored 1 goal so far this season. Now, I know they've had a difficult spell because they had Rangers and Celtic in that, but I just don't think they look like they're going to create a lot. And I think for me, Kyle Lafferty has been a massive disappointment so far. I don't think he's offered anywhere near enough. Again, I think Ollie Shaw, I'm going to be honest, I think Ollie Shaw's a championship level striker. I don't think he's good enough for the Premier League. And I think they really lack that spark. I just don't see where they're going to get goals from. And I think for Derek McInnes to say we've competed well so far, okay, you're not gonna come out and say your team's been really poor, but I'm not seeing that yet. I don't see enough about this Kilmarnock side. I said I thought they'd be okay this season. I'm changing that now. I know it's only 4 games in, but I just don't see where they're going to score goals from because Lafferty looks like a busted flush. He's not. His movement's really poor. He's not competing for the ball, and he doesn't look like scoring.
Yeah, and I suppose they're almost on a hiding to nothing this season because everyone almost expects those teams coming up from the Championship to go straight back down. But it's early days, and for me, it is the fact that they do look so poor at the top end of the pitch that could come back to haunt them. But then we also do have St Johnston looking equally as poor up front. So it might just be a case of who can score more goals between those two to keep them up in the top flight.
Yeah, very possibly. And I think, to be honest, looking at them at the moment, I think Ross County look like they've got a little bit more about them. They've got a bit more steel, a bit more fight. And they have looked a threat in most of the games. I haven't really seen that from Kilmarnock yet. Now, maybe it'll come. I don't know. But I think it is imperative that McInnes strengthens that team, especially up front and in that midfield area. They don't look like going to create enough chances. And as I say, 1 goal in 4 games. McInnes might not be thinking that's much of a worry just now because they have played Celtic and Rangers. But if I'm a Kilmarnock fan, I'd be very concerned so far.
Yeah, absolutely. And then another set of fans that will be very concerned is, of course, the Dundee United fans, because their season, well, I was going to say is going from bad to worse, but certainly the recent weeks are going from bad to worse because they suffered a very bruising 3-0 defeat at home to St Mirren. Stephen Robinson really turning things around in recent weeks. But that's 2 home games, no goals, 2 defeats for Dundee United. The pressure's really beginning to mount on Jack Ross from the Tannadice faithful.
When you are losing 2 goals to Curtis Main, you know you're having a bad season. Listen, fair play to St Mirren. They thoroughly deserved it. They bossed the game from start to finish. Curtis Main took his 2 goals well, and obviously the last-minute goal from Alec Grieve as well. St Mirren thoroughly deserved it. They were very impressive. 2 wins in the bounce for Robinson, 2 clean sheets. But United, I mean, that AZ Datmar hammering has really affected them badly. 14 goals in the last 3 games. They take out Mark Birighitti in goals. They put in Eriksson, who, let's be honest, doesn't look any better. And just defensively, they look awful. I mean, Charlie Mulgrew, the experience he's got, and he looks so poor just now. They look so vulnerable. When they lose the first goal in a game, they look like they're going to collapse. There's a lot of folks saying that Jack Ross is under pressure. Again, it's 4 games too early. If they keep going the way they are, he'll be out the door because they just look so devoid of confidence just now. And to lose 14 goals in the last 3 games is absolutely awful.
What did you make of the decision to change the goalkeeper? Because I know when we spoke last week, we did kind of bring that up in discussion about whether or not we could see a change in goalkeeper, but being so early in the season, I certainly for one didn't expect it and was very surprised when I was tuning into Sports Scene on Saturday night to see they had gone ahead and changed keepers.
If you're going to change a keeper, make sure he's better than one he just dropped. And I didn't see enough of Eriksson on Saturday to say that he's any better than Birighitti, to be honest. And I think if you're Birighitti, you've got to be like thinking, right, well, okay, I've lost a lot of goals, but there was a few goals that I couldn't have dealt with, and to be taken out the firing line, I mean, that's got to really destroy his confidence. And then your senior understudy come in and lose 3 goals. And to be honest, the first 2 goals maybe he couldn't do a lot about, but the last goal, he comes rushing out. And if you're going to do that, you've got to get the ball. And he gets nothing. And Grieve just tucks it past him. So I think they've got a real issue in goalkeeper. Now, I know Zander Clark is a free agent. I don't know if he would go to United, but they've got a lot of problems. They really do. I think the only shining light for me is Glenn Middleton. I think he looks a threat going forward. But apart from that, defensively, they are all over the place. And Jack Ross has got to do something. What, I don't know, but he's got to do something, and quickly.
Yeah, if your only shining light is Glenn Middleton, it says a lot about where you are. And I suppose, as I said in the group chat, the one place you don't want to be going when you are in a bit of trouble and maybe under pressure is to Celtic. And facing Celtic this weekend is what, of course, Dundee United do. I guess for Jack Ross, if he is under pressure, which it seems to be the case from the fans, how do they view this game coming up at the weekend against Celtic? Do they almost view that as a free hit, and given the way Celtic have kind of started this season?
I was going to say the only thing in the favour is games at Tannadice, but they've just lost 2-0 to St Mirren by 2 goals from Curtis Main, so that's not going to help when you're playing.
Well, yeah, exactly. They've not scored at home this season, so.
And when you're coming up against a team that's got Kyogo, Maeda, Giacomakis in it, that's not going to help. I think in terms of a free hit, I don't know if you want to think like that, but I think this is damage limitation. It really is. I mean, I think if you lose an early goal on Saturday, the way things are going just now, I think they could concede quite a few. They've got to try and go into this game and try and keep the score down. I know that sounds daft, but at the moment they've got to do something to keep that score down.
Yeah,
and they've got to try and cause Celtic a threat. Now, where that comes from, I don't know, but they've got to go into that game and thinking, right, what can we do to fix this? Do we change formation? But they've got to change the attitude as well, because they just look so devoid of confidence. And I mean, again, do you keep Eriksson a goal? Do you bring Birighitti back? It's a difficult one. And I think Jack Ross has got a lot of questions to ask. But again, a bit like St Johnston and Kilmarnock, I think they're going to have to bring players in, because they just look a bit short as well in numbers. So that's a massive challenge as well.
Yeah, and I suppose the problem is if you've already shot one keeper's confidence, changing your keeper for the game against Celtic will just shoot Eriksson's confidence straight in the foot as well. So United really causing some of their own problems as well. But for Stephen Robinson, as you said, which I hadn't noticed, it was 2 clean sheets now for them. Quite the improvement when Declan Gallagher's not playing at centre-back. So maybe that red card at Pittodrie has benefited not just Aberdeen in that game, but St Mirren in the long run as well. But, a real bonus for Stephen Robinson, and probably from a St Mirren point of view, the perfect away performance this weekend.
Yeah, and I think as well, you're against a United side that's vulnerable, but you've still got to take advantage of that, and they did that. They played very well. The first goal, slightly fortunate because the ball deflects off Levitt into Main's path, but he still got to finish it. And I thought all through the game, St Mirren looked very good. They looked a real threat going forward. I thought they were a handful. And yeah, defensively looked a lot better. You look at the Aberdeen game, okay, Gallagher gets sent off and they lose a few goals, but I think the fact they've managed to keep 2 clean sheets, again, is a massive boost for Robertson, who I thought was under pressure early in the season. Yeah. So that's a big, big statement for him. And I think they've now, again, you talk about building, he's got to build on that. And I think for Curtis Main, he's got to get a lot of confidence off that now. It's his first goals of the season, which is not surprising. So he's now got to build on that. And I think St Mirren will be very happy with their start to the season so far. And, I think Robinson will be very happy with that. To score 3 goals away from home, keep a clean sheet, he'll be delighted with that.
Yeah, big fan of Dylan Levitt appealing for offside as well. That first goal as well, forgetting that the ball came off him into Curtis Main's path. But no, you're right. Especially for St Mirren as well with, Jonah Ayunga having a good Premier Sports Cup. This would maybe be the shining light for St Mirren in that cup campaign. But getting goals and, it was a problem we seem to talk about regularly on State of Scottish Football last season with St Mirren's lack of goals. So for Curtis Main to get a brace already this early in the campaign will hopefully do him the world of good, which in turn will benefit St Mirren. And they've now found themselves on 6 points, same as some other teams in the league as well. After maybe staring down the barrel after that hammering that they took at Bitawdry. So as we say, it's still early in the season. Things can change very quickly. People can find themselves under pressure, and people can put themselves under pressure very easily at this early stage.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, obviously Rangers dropped points on Saturday, but every other team is capable of taking points of each other. So there is a chance for St Mirren to have a decent season. And if they can keep players fit, and if Curtis May can score goals and Richard Tate can score the goal like he did against Ross County, then they've got a decent chance of doing something, maybe top 6 this season. But it's such a massive, massive confidence boost for St Mirren. And I think, as I said, the big thing for Stephen Robinson is the fact that he's now kept 2 clean sheets. So, as you said, maybe the thing is just don't play Declan Gallagher.
Maybe. If only if managerial was that easy, then me and you could maybe get a job at it. But we'll wrap up the show with looking at the final game from the weekend that we haven't yet covered, as Motherwell continue their impressive start to the season under Stevie Hamill with a 1-0 win over Davy Martindale's Livingston side. I was speaking to some guys from the Talk Livy podcast earlier who said Livingston kind of just had an off day. So maybe off days and playing Motherwell seems to be a bit of a common occurrence in recent weeks. But yeah, another good win for Stevie Hamill, backing up that away win that they had at Tawdry last week.
It was, but they shouldn't have had it, because that penalty is never a penalty. And if you're watching this, Jenna, I'm sorry, but that is never a penalty in years. That Montoya clearly does not handle the ball. Now, I don't blame Nick Wilkes for this, because I don't think he sees it. But what the assistant saw, I don't know. And I said this in the group chat. I think he's guessed. I think he saw Sean Goss and the Motherwell players claiming for it, and he thought, oh, that's a handball. But that's not a handball. And David Martindale, to be fair to him, was very calm after the game.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I'm sorry, but that is never a penalty in a million years.
Yeah. And I suppose Robbie Neilson could take some notes from Martindale on how to be calm after defeating controversial style. But as well, the linesman's actually on the side that the incident of the penalty happened. So he should be up with the play, should be in line, should be on that byline looking at the post, and he should be able to see that. You said about corruption, or they're just terrible. File it under what you will. It depends if you're a Livingston fan or not listening into this episode. But it's just another decision in a long line of controversial decisions that have been made this weekend, and probably why a lot of fans around VAR wanted it in at the start of the season, not midway through the season, because you're going to have teams benefiting or on the end of decisions that don't go in their favour or go in their favour, depending on which team you support this weekend, that in a couple of months' time, these decisions hopefully are rectified by VAR. And I don't see how that is fair over the course of a season as a whole.
No, it's not. And I think, I mean, it is very early in the season, but I mean, those points could end up costing Livingston like top 6 or even relegation based on decisions like that. You've got to get those big calls right. And for me, what the assistant thought he saw, I do not know, because the ball clearly does not hit the arm. And that's a big, big call. And I think, listen, fair play to David Martindale for being calm after the game, because I don't think I would be if that was me. Mm-hmm. And you've got to get those big calls right. And yeah, I agree. Personally, if you're going to bring VAR in, you do it at the start. You don't bring it in halfway through the season. And I just think as David Martindale says, I would rather have VAR in now, the sooner the better, because these big calls are going to cost teams. And I think Livingston weren't great on the day. Did they deserve to lose? It was a very even game. Motherwell maybe just edged it, but again, those big calls could cost Livingston, top 6 or anything. So you've got to get these big calls right.
Yeah, exactly. And I suppose for teams like Livingston, as you say, in their hope for getting a top 6 place and the benefits that it comes with when you're looking at probably the top 5 in the Premiership benefiting from European football in some way or form next season as well, that can prove costly over the course of this season. But again, we said last week when we reviewed the weekend's action that Motherwell needed to back up that win, and they've gone and done that. And then had it not been for a late goal from Stevie May, they'd currently be unbeaten this season, along with Rangers and Celtic.
Which after what happened with Sligo Rovers and after what happened with Graham Alexander is mental to think about. But to be fair, Stevie Hamill has done very well. He's taken management to a duck to water, so fair enough. He's done a very good job, but I still think they need to recruit. I still think they maybe rely on Kevin Van Veen a little bit too much. Mm-hmm. But I think, listen, it's been a great start for Hamill. And again, they've now got to look to build on that now. They look okay defensively. I still think they're lacking a bit of creativity in midfield.
Yeah.
But I think if you're Stevie Hamill, you've got to be delighted. I mean, I wasn't sure about giving him the job, and it is still very early. But Stevie Hamill so far has done well. And I think the Motherwell players look like they've reacted to him. They look like they know what their jobs are. They look comfortable with him, which they clearly didn't under Alexander. So it's been a great start for Stevie Hamill. So yeah, I mean, fair play. He's done very well so far.
Yeah, and there's Stockroom Tim again back interacting with tonight's episode, as a lot of you have done, and kind of backing up that comment about bringing VAR in midway through the season about undermining the league and being amateurist, but then Scottish football tends not to help itself in these situations as well. Graham, for Livingston though, is it maybe a case of bigger picture after having a bad day at the office? Wins against Livingston and away to Dundee United, that's 6 points out of 12. They've got to be happy with their start of the season. They've given themselves a platform to build, and I suppose it maybe just shows a sign of that good start to the season that they are disappointed at the way that Saturday went.
Yeah, I think Martindale will be quite pleased. They have competed in every game. They've not really been hammered by anybody. Mm-hmm. And I think as well, Joel Newblade didn't have the best of games on Saturday. I thought Motherwell dealt with him okay. But I think it's vital that they keep him before the end of this window. I think they probably will. But I think, Livingston are going to have a decent season. I've already said numerous times, I think they're vastly underrated. I think they will be a decent side this season. Saturday was an off day. That's going to happen. But again, they've just got to get back in, win the next game. And I think you said Aberdeen next week.
Yeah.
I mean, that's going to be a hard game, but it'll be a physical game. I think Aberdeen will be up for that as well. So it's going to be difficult for Livingston. But, I mean, I think that Livingston pitch, if they can get teams at home on that pitch, that's going to help them. But games away from home next week, I think Aberdeen might win that. But Livingston will be fine this season. I think Martindale's got a decent side there. Again, I think he'll look to add to it. But, yeah, Saturday was a disappointing result. But again, that penalty, if that's not given, I think Mother will get at least a point out of that game. Livingston get a point out of that game.
Yeah, exactly. And like I said, over the course of the season, those things, the age-old football cliche, these things iron themselves out. But over the course of the season, you don't introduce technology to iron those decisions out. So we'll see what happens for both Livingston and Motherwell. But just one of those things in what has been a highly controversial, if not highly entertaining, weekend of cinch Scottish Premiership football. Graham, been a pleasure catching up with you again this Monday, reviewing the weekend's action. Let's see if next Monday will be just as eventful.
Yeah, I'll be interested to see what happens next week. Surely we're not going to be talking about referees again, but you never know. That's what happens when you're in the cinch Premiership. You've got to love it.
Yeah, it's Scottish football. Of course, we'll be talking about referees. Maybe not so many red cards next week, but who knows? And thanks also to all of you that have interacted with the show. Remember to leave a like. A lot of you have commented as well. Myself and Graham will be back next week. Until then, thanks very much for tuning in to tonight's episode.